You find yourself in the city of dreams, beautiful Night City. Everywhere you look, there's neon glitz and chrome elegance, a world where power and possibility seems endless. But below the surface, there's a darkness that even the brightest lights can't hide. This city promises so much, but what it delivers often falls short. It's a place where the pursuit of power comes at a steep price. Imagine it. One day you're shopping for some new chrome, and the next you're slowly slipping away, becoming someone, something that you no longer recognize. Welcome to 1000 Ways to Die in Night City, the series where we explore in PG-13 visceral detail just how brutal the streets can be, even if the video games don't always do it justice. Today we're diving into the terrifying mental anguish that comes with cyberpsychosis. Let's get into it. In the neon-soaked streets of Night City, there's no shortage of brutal and bleak ways to die. Rival gangs care little for who is in the crossfire, corpos will squash you like a bug if you dare mess with their bottom line, and corrupt cops are itching for an excuse to discharge their firearm. But cyberpsychosis? That's in a class of its own. While in-universe research surrounding cyberpsychosis is still being performed, it's commonly accepted that cyberpsychosis is a dissociative disorder or mental illness, which results in a person's mind fracturing under the weight of their cybernetic enhancements. It's a nightmare come to life, where the lines between humanity and machinery blur, leaving nothing left of the person you once were, just a shell housing rage and violence. The creator of the Cyberpunk series, Mike Pondsmith, likens cyberpsychosis to an addiction, specifically using heavy anabolic steroids as his favorite metaphor. He claims that getting cyberware is similar to going on anabolic steroids in the gym. You do it to get a competitive edge. Now, an unwanted side effect of steroid abuse is hypomania and aggression, or what is commonly known as roid rage. Roid rage standing in for the effects of cyberpsychosis. Now, just like how not everyone who abuses anabolic steroids gets roid rage, not everyone who kits themselves to the nines in cyberware is gonna fall victim to cyberpsychosis. Some are more susceptible to it than others. In the Cyberpunk tabletop RPG, the humanity or empathy stat is directly tied to the character's ability to empathize, absorb and rebound stressors, and the ability to show compassion. As such, it also measures the character's susceptibility to experiencing cyberpsychosis, a low humanity stat, and you're more likely to experience it. And this reflects how cyberpsychosis seems to work. It's this mental anguish of realizing that you're less human, more machine, and acting out on it. Whether it's out of fear or the feeling of being superior to less borged out humans, your capacity for empathy diminishes, resulting in increased aggression and mania. While Night City is full of gunfights and power struggles, cyberpsychosis is something more terrifying because it strips people of their control, their agency. One day you're upgrading your limbs for an edge on the streets, the next, you're staring at a reflection of someone you barely recognize, trapped in a body that doesn't fully feel like your own. The mind, already taxed by a city that never lets up, just breaks, and once it does, there's no easy fix. In-game, especially prior to a few post-launch updates and the release of Edgerunners, cyberpsychosis was just this sort of abstract and mysterious condition that served as the hook for Gina Jones's line of quests. But take a moment to imagine it as it would really be. Friends turning into enemies, innocent bystanders targeted by someone who is unable to perceive their surroundings, And all because their mind was pushed past its limits with the help of technology. It's not often a quick death, but a slow dissolution of identity, and that's what makes it so chilling. But why might someone go down this avenue? If you know the risks are there, why augment yourself past the point of no return? Well, it's simple really. In a place like Night City, cybernetic upgrades aren't just popular, they're encouraged. Almost everyone is packing at least a little chrome. Whether it's a new optic mod for sharper vision, cybernetic limbs that turn a punch into a jackhammer, or a brain-computer interface that crunches data at lightning speed, there's a piece of tech for everyone. But the real allure, cybernetics are a way to gain some semblance of control in a world that otherwise forces you to play by its unfair rules. For many, these enhancements offer ways to level the playing field, and maybe even rise above it, if only for a little while. Because in Night City, power isn't given, it's taken. And what better way to take it than becoming more than human? The ads plastered across skyscrapers and alleys promise the freedom to be faster, stronger, and sharper. They show grinning models fitted with sleek, shining tech, backed by slogans that scream limitless. For the people grinding through the muck of Night City's lower ranks, that offer is hard to refuse. You are constantly being told that you could be more, if only you had the right enhancements. And in a city that thrives on intimidation, who wouldn't want to walk around with a cybernetic fist that can dent steel? But there's a darker side to that promise, something buried in the fine print, or ignored altogether. Every implant comes with a cost, and it's not just the price tag either. With each new piece of tech embedded in muscle, bone, or brain, there's a strain, a little added pressure on the human mind. Most people can ignore it for a while, that faint sense that something feels off. But as the body begins to run on more wires and less flesh, that strain can become overwhelming. The human mind isn't designed to process the constant sensory input, the unnatural speeds, the superhuman reflexes. It was never meant to be a machine. And while the body might take the brunt of these changes, it's the mind that suffers quietly, stretched thinner with every new mod. For the corporations selling this tech, the risks are part of the business. They know cyberpsychosis is a potential outcome, but they also know that desperation sells. They know that people in Night City are looking for a way to matter, for a way to be noticed. It's no secret. These companies lean on the knowledge that humans will trade anything, even their sanity, for a chance to get ahead. And they capitalize on that desperation, pushing upgrades, more power, more speed, without a whisper of the dangers. And why wouldn't people take that chance? When survival means keeping up with the relentless violence and competition, when even your neighbor is potentially an armed threat, upgrades don't feel like a choice. They feel like survival. For many, it's just the way that you stay alive, stay relevant, stay powerful. But when tech pushes you past the limits of human resilience, it's no longer a tool. It's a ticking time bomb in the mind, slowly counting down to zero, waiting for the moment that it goes off. But what is experiencing cyberpsychosis actually like? The path to cyberpsychosis is a slow, brutal descent, marked by stages that push a person further from who they once were. It starts subtly, with early symptoms that might seem almost normal in the chaotic world of Night City. While symptoms can range in certain individuals, paranoia is often one of the first signs. But in a city where threats lurk everywhere, a little suspicion isn't all out of place. However, for someone on edge, that flicker of doubt can only grow. It transforms from the reasonable caution of watching your back to a constant, gnawing fear. Friends, family, and allies become potential threats. Every passing stranger looks hostile, every shadow holds danger. Their mind becomes trapped in a relentless cycle of fear, unable to distinguish real danger from imagined threats. Increased aggression starts shortly after. The need to defend against these perceived threats drives people to lash out violently, sometimes even preemptively. They may start to challenge others, pick fights, or see every minor insult as a reason to draw weapons. The small provocation sets off a flood of anger they can't seem to hold back. It's not long before this that aggression turns deadly. In this stage, the victim of cyberpsychosis may become known as a cyberpsycho on the streets, a walking nightmare of augmented strength, brutal in their violence, and terrifyingly disconnected from reason. But not everyone who starts experiencing the symptoms of cyberpsychosis will resort to violence. Rather, the final stages of cyberpsychosis will result in some form of a broken personality. It can take the form of becoming a kleptomaniac or a compulsive liar. As cyberpsychosis progresses, they begin to adopt traits that will further socially ostracize them from the rest of the world. As their grip on reality weakens, those suffering from cyberpsychosis start to slip through the cracks of Night City's already fractured society. The more these individuals withdraw into paranoia, aggression, or compulsive behavior, the more they're pushed out of social circles, left alone with their spiraling thoughts. Their former lives, jobs, families, friendships become distant as they grow increasingly erratic, unable to trust or connect with anyone. Now, what makes cyberpsychosis so horrifying isn't just the way it devours a person's mind. It's the fact that it's uncurable. Once someone tips over the edge, there's no going back. While in-game, Regina Jones is interested in finding a cure for the condition, her work is very much in the early researching stages and nowhere close to coming up with a proven cure. And so potential cyberpsychos are often left without an effective path forward. The Night City government does its best to track and document everyone who gets implants. Part of the reason the Ripper Doc business is so successful in Night City is because not everyone who gets implants actually wants the government to know about them. But that's besides the point. People who are documented to be going past the limits of what's acceptable, nearing the cyberware edge, are required to register on Night City's Cyber Psycho Register. While those registered are not fully psycho, this allows for Night City officials to track who to be aware of. It's similar to a parole situation. You're not confined and you're free to live life as normal, but people will be keeping an eye on you. Now, anyone who goes past the edge, turning fully psycho, are often killed outright without a possibility for rehabilitation. This is usually due to the dangers present when trying to capture a psycho. It's often much safer for NC police to kill rather than capture. When news of a psycho attack is received, Night City's most lethal law enforcement, MaxTac, are dispatched to take them out. And this is part of what makes cyberpsychosis terrifying. You, essentially, become a dead man walking. You slowly and gradually lose what makes yourself you. And rather than getting treatment or rehabilitation like one might expect, you're just considered a ticking time bomb. And the moment you do something considered even a little hostile, MaxTac is out there, suited up, and ready to blast you to smithereens. It's a death sentence. But sometimes, on very rare occasions, a cyberpsycho is taken alive. In these cases, the psycho is strapped down, and all their cybernetics are deactivated. They are then jacked into a custom brain dance, where a cyberpsychologist slowly attempts to piece their fractured mind and personality back together. This process can take weeks, or sometimes even months. Over this period, the cyberpsycho will start to regain portions of their humanity. They may even get to the point where they can go back to installing cyberware again, but it's noted that they are never really truly themselves. The cyberpsychosis has caused irreversible damage that will haunt them forever. And that's what makes the condition just so chilling. If it doesn't result in your death, it will result in you forever becoming a different person. Cyberpunk 2077 presents cyberpsychosis as a very real threat in Night City, with cyberpsychos scattered across the game's world. When you encounter them, they're typically already lost to the illness, their bodies pumped with augmentations that amplify their rage. They're formidable opponents, often stronger than other NPCs, showing just how deadly cyberpsychosis can get. It's through these encounters that the game manages to capture the raw, violent side of cyberpsychosis, letting players see firsthand what happens when tech takes over. It's explosive, dangerous, and brutal. But beyond these battles, the game doesn't fully capture what makes cyberpsychosis so terrifying. In the game, cyberpsychos are little more than enemies to be subdued or eliminated, making them feel more like obstacles than people. While the in-game shards often detail the backstories behind these individuals, it's really just optional reading. You can easily skip over the walls of text that describe just how haunting the cyberpsychosis process can be. Take Matt Leah, for example. Leah was a second Central American War veteran who had almost died after stepping on a mine. After returning to Night City, he was laid off, lost his health insurance, and was evicted from his apartment. He was a war veteran who was injured, and upon coming back to the new USA, he quickly found himself homeless. With no way to support himself or upgrade his obsolete cyberware, Leah found himself slowly descending into cyberpsychosis. He would eventually go full psycho, attacking an NCPD unit on an unfinished overpass. Leah was someone that society and the government should have taken care of, checked in on. But instead, he found himself alone and without an Eddie to his name. It's a tragic tale. There's also Cedric Mueller. Mueller was a red Ocher nomad who had been captured by Biotechnica for their Project Nightingale experiments. While Biotechnica claimed Nightingale was related to improving antibiotics, others viewed it as Corpo-approved murder. At least 7 Red Ocher clan members were killed in these experiments. Mueller was one of the few that survived these tests. However, due to chronic pain from the testing, Mueller reached out to a scav friend of his for some neuroblockers. However, instead of providing him with the neuroblockers, the scavs ambushed Mueller and tried to kill him and take his implants. Mueller would be driven to full psycho when the scavs tried to kill him, eliminating them instead. Mueller was just a nomad, living his life away from the chaos of the city. But against their will, he and his clan were subject to a series of deadly medical experiments. And even after surviving what so many others had perished to, Mueller still couldn't catch a break. He reached out to someone that he trusted and was betrayed. This is one of those cases where the world just takes and takes, leaving you with nothing. And at a certain point, you just break. Cedric Mueller just broke. The game can miss the more psychological horror aspects, the paranoia, the isolation, the slow unraveling of someone who starts as an average citizen. We don't see these smaller, quieter moments where a character begins to lose touch, struggling to recognize friend from foe, or feeling trapped in their own mind. But that's where Edgerunners comes in. The story of David Martinez's slow descent into cyberpsychosis is able to better share the haunting nature of this mental disorder. Where in the games we encounter psychos pretty much past the point of no return, David shows us how exactly someone can go from a regular Night City citizen to someone on the path to cyberpsychosis. It's a far more intimate depiction. We see David as a kid with big dreams, navigating a brutal city with courage, grit, and a little bit of naivety. But as he piles on cyberware to survive and rise in the cutthroat world of Night City, we see the gradual toll it takes. Edgerunners follows his transformation in somber detail, letting viewers feel the cost of each upgrade. At first, it's small. David's personality starts to shift, his reactions become sharper, his patience thinner. But the stakes keep getting higher, and as he shoulders more enhancements, the cyberware changes him, pushing him towards a breaking point. The anime captures the slow but steady erosion of his sense of self, slipping from resolve to recklessness, from control to chaos. And the show doesn't let us look away. In several scenes, David experiences terrifying episodes where his mind fractures. Hallucinations, flashes of people long gone, a sense of suffocation as his identity warps under the weight of his tech. These moments are jarring, intimate, making us watch a person fall apart from inside out. Instead of just being a combatant or a threat, David is shown as a human being caught in an impossible situation. A kid who wanted to make a difference, but became another victim of Night City's endless hunger. Edgerunner shows the tragic inevitability that is cyberpsychosis, a gradual, heart-wrenching fall, rather than the sudden explosion that the game often shows it as. David's journey is a warning, a reminder of how much is lost, piece by piece, when someone pushes too far in a world that offers power at a devastating price. Ultimately, David's story in Edgerunners brings everything we've discussed into focus, showing the grim reality of cyberpsychosis. Across every portrayal, from the in-game cyberpsycho sightings to David's slow descent, the horror of cyberpsychosis is more than just its violence. It's an irreversible loss of self, a force that shatters identity, relationships, and lives. And this is what makes cyberpsychosis one of the worst ways to go in Night City. It's a uniquely terrifying experience because it doesn't just end in death. It strips a person of who they are long before the end finally arrives. In a world where tech is a symbol of both survival and status, cyberpsychosis serves as a dark reminder of what's sacrificed along the way: your own humanity. That's all from me today, folks. If you liked the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Join the Discord. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
You didn't kill a single cyberpsycho. I know how much easier and simpler it can be to take a life rather than save one. Really, V, nice work.